So I started studying the literature they put out in the books, and this one book in particular, which a lot of things in it I didn't realize till later on in life. And at one point, a place in there they mentioned Meher Baba, and just kind of went over it. But Meher Baba took my master teacher through God realization in 1972, and he took him through the illumination in 1969, which coincided perfectly with Meher Baba's passing. But 1972 was the big one, and that's when the master was born, the perfect master. And everything that from then on is totally miraculous. Wasn't meeting him, and this was 1975 when I met him, and there had already been a lot that had taken place, because he was given planetary work to do, and even evolved into solar work. Bob kept him super busy. So I really don't know where to go from here. We stayed around Illinois, and I researched books, and I tried to join the group once, but I panicked and freaked out because my family was all freaked out about me leaving. I was 19 years old, and this was the time of when Jim Jones and the big mass suicides occurred in Guyana, and it was also the time right when Charles Manson was in California chopping people up in pieces. And the other thing that was freaking my parents out was because I decided to go to California and join the school. Well, when they heard that, all hell broke loose. The other thing that my mother was terrified of was her sister in Chicago had a son, beautiful son, about my age, 19 and 20, and he went off and joined some cult, and they never heard from him again. And so it tore that whole family up. So now here I am telling Mom I'm going to California to join a spiritual group, right when Jim Jones and Charles Manson was going on. So anyways, my mother was pretty connected. She had political connections, and she had the FBI after us and the IBI after us, and they were trying to get me back, and they were trying to prove that the master was a fraud that was brainwashing kids and taking them away from their parents, and oh my God, it went on and on. Well, still, the new school was in California, and now I was there. This would be 1970, around 76. And it was located in Ben Lomond, California, in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And let's see, where should I go from here? Well, it was like a giant tree house, and we had about 10 students living there, and I was kind of like the maintenance man. And we had a spiritual program that started off the day with meditation, prayers, yoga, and then chores, lots of chores for me, and cooking. I did some cooking for them. And then we had weekly classes, and you also had to learn how to play music. That was masters have certain areas, most of them that they specialize in, and Master J, that we called him, was a musician. Really good. Kind of, he grew up playing the Beatles. This was, we're talking 1969. He was born in 49, so he was playing contemporary rock and roll and Beatles and Bob Dylan tunes and Steve Miller and all them guys. And so we all did restaurant work to support the school. We all went out, like the Denny's in Santa Cruz is right on the ocean, and all the people from San Jose on Sunday come over the hill going to the ocean, and we're the first restaurant you see. It was the busiest Denny's. It was the busiest place I've ever seen, and I'd never cooked before in an environment like that. Well, they started training me to be a cook, and by golly, it was hard. It was busy. It was hard. I didn't think I could do it. I thought if I could make it through, if I could learn how to do this job, I said, I think I can make it through God realization. and it was just torturous, and people didn't like me, and I wasn't good at it in the beginning, but I stuck with it. And the guy that was the trainer, he was the president. He had just got out of the Hell's Angels. He was he was the president, and he'd seen murder. And, his name was Gibby. And he walked around. He was solid muscle. All his knuckles were broke from doing taekwondo and stuff. And he was a sight to behold. He was absolute solid muscle, scary as hell. Seldom smiled. Walked around inspecting, trained observer, you know. And he kept me. He busted my tail and scared me. And but he turned me into a really hell of a good cook. He got to be, but you know, after a year, I could run the whole place. And I was, so I was like the star lead cook now, and we were doing 2,000 breakfasts a morning, and I was cooking all the eggs. I had gallon buckets of scrambled eggs ready to go, and I'd stack pancakes this high, you know, and had 10 pans of sausages cooked off, and that was all you could do to keep up. Well, so anyways, quite a few of the people in the school worked there. We had 2 or 3 of the girls was waitresses, and we had maybe one other cook that was there and kind of left, and I was like taking over his position. But the others, they worked in other restaurants. There was a lot, some of them working in fancy restaurants down on the ocean, and others driving over the hill working in San Jose at fancy French restaurants and stuff. So we had quite a thing going on there, and lots of transcendental heavy questions, and I got to see a lot of miraculous occurrences, phenomena, and occurrences, and a lot of healings, and I don't even know. I've written books on it. I was asked to write a book, and they said that my teacher said that Master Jesus wanted me to write a book about everything I've seen since joining. Now I've been there like, let's see, 2.5, 3 years, or actually longer than that. This was after. It's hard to put everything together. But anyways, so I've got all that stuff written down, and it's a lot like Bible stories, you know, a lot of coincidences that would happen, and people would learn stuff. And he pointed out a lot of things that, you know, with like perfect timing. It was an incredible thing to behold. A perfect master, and I didn't spend a lot of time. He was so powerful that you didn't get to spend much time with him. And, you know, he had to limit it. But he wrote during those 2 years, the school was named ICR, which is the Institute of Cosmological Research. Cosmological and mathematical research, because there was some math and some diagrams and stuff in there that were only being released to the mass consciousness now. This was actually, you know, he materialized it with his older students in 1972, and this was a continuation of a spiritual teacher called Georgi Gurdjieff. He was an Armenian, some considered a master, that died in 1949, which was the year Wendell was born, the teacher that I was studying under. And we were told that Wendell, or Master J, brought the second half of Gurdjieff's books on the Enneagram and spiritual development. And Gurdjieff had big schools in France, all over the United States. He still has a big following. And but they were a dual team, and that he had brought the first half of the books, the teachings that were being released to mankind, and Wendell materialized the second half. So now they have both halves. Well, I have all those books. Somehow I'm like probably the only one that has them now, because most of the students have, you know, the band, this group, we just, I don't know what you call it, but anyways, there's not many people but me into it anymore. And what I did is I collected from every student the books, the music, all the albums, uh, all the pictures I could get, everything, and I made a website, and I'm still working on it. And my goal now is, he said the music would be popular. It ain't gonna be. I loved his music when he played it, and that was 1981. He said, I said, I'm thinking, why don't you put this out on the market? Why don't you, make this available to men? Well, masters just don't work like that. They're not here to make money or anything. They live on what they need, and that's it. But anyways, he said this music won't even be popular for 50 years. Well, we're coming up on 50 years now. That was 1981, so 2031, he said music would be popular. So I feel like I have 5 years to figure out how to get these 3 albums published, and that's one of my goals. And then I also want to go back and finish the book that he said, Master, you just wanted me to write, because I've got a lot more material, and I remember a lot more now and can understand the things that were taking place then now better than I could when I was getting them. And I was told that's the way it would be, because they teach such heavy teaching that it takes 25 years to get it. There's a time warp in between, when they put something out and when it occurs, just like, well, that's just the way it is. It takes time. Cosmic knowledge is, mankind don't have a whole lot of it. Anyway, so what was I going for? So one of the first album is called Angel Man, and that's a devotional song. The second album is called Unreal to Real, and the third album is called Down to Earth and Still Well. And that's the last one. Well, it's not the last one he did, but it was like the main one that we did in California. And like my bedroom was a recording studio, and we did it all. It was all done there. Down to Earth and Still Well. It's a 10-song album, and that is the one that is. It's more of a rock and roll album, but it's a devotional lyrics. They're all geared towards cosmological, godly thinking, and the songs are just amazing because they create an atmosphere and an attitude that somebody on the spiritual path can understand easily, and that they can use, because it's really good music. It's fun music, good beat, upbeat, uplifting stuff. And what the songs are saying is, why I liked them so much was the lyrics. I like rock and roll, and I grew up in the the 60s and 70s too, and it was all good. But lyrics were always my thing that got me. The music, that was good too. But so I like people like Cat Stevens. The Moody Blues were a big person, and everybody else that sang anything about God or anything about higher knowledge. There's quite a few that had a lot of good songs. And so I've kind of collected all that over the years. But anyways, so that's what I'm trying to get done. And I feel like it's my goal in life and mission to do it. And, I've met a lot of opposition. People call me, they say I've got, some kind of crazy religion. Well, you get a lot of, just like back then, nobody knew who Mayor Bob was. I didn't know who he was. They had a book out that I got, and it was called Be Here Now. And when you opened it, it was this big purple book. I got it at a rummage sale for $1. And it was done on like newspaper, not newspaper, but brown paper. It was real kind of organic, hippie style book. And when you opened the center of it, there was Mayor Baba. That's the first time I'd ever seen him. And he was saying, when you bite your fingernail, you bite him. Talking about God. And I'm like, man, this guy's like weird. Well, but I remember, because I had a real bad fingernail. I mean, I bit up so bad that they bleed when I was growing up. And I finally had gotten over it, but I remember that. And I think that, Baba Ram Das, he went to see Baba in India, He was a bigwig back here in the States, and at this college right there that we were at. He hung out there and, you know, did talks and everything. And when he got to Baba, Baba says, "You don't know anything about spirituality." That's what he told him. And so what happened after that, I don't know. Because he was into like psilocybin and LSD, and Timothy Leary used to, you know, be a part of this. It was all happening right there in Carbondale. It was the hub of all this. And you know, Baba had that big campaign against drugs back then because everybody, you know, they were asking him if that's the way to spiritual enlightenment and all that. And he was just tearing them up. He was tearing them up, saying no. So he took the wind out of the sails of the guy that wrote this book, but he's still in there. And then the second book that got me turned on to Baba, because it was called Gene Adriel's. The name of the book was Avatar, and I read it in full one night because I had to stay up all night and take care of these 7 old people that I was living in a motel with, because it was 17 below and all the water pipes had froze up, and the water pipes and heating pipes were we were having problems with them, and they had to keep this furnace going. And so I stayed up all night that night, and I read this book, and about 3/4 way through it, reading about Baba, I just burst into this uncontrollable tears, and my throat, I was like, and I knew from then on that I had to know more about Baba, you know. So that was kind of when I would say touched. You know, and they say spiritual teachers, masters, they have different ways of divinely touching you, and that one definitely got me. But where we go from here, I'm going to stop and think about this. I'll be back one of these days, or hours or minutes.